Finance Committee meeting, recorded April 11, 2022.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Can you get to order, please?
Yep, ladies and gentlemen and others. It's really nice when we can have nice conversations in between sessions, so makes me happy. Good evening, everyone. It is April 11th, and this is the Finance Committee, and I'm calling it to order. The first item on our agenda is a non-action item, was the roll call, which I did. And then our second item on the agenda is update on 2022 capital road projects and potential impacts on the capital budget. Director Badoon.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
That's about as happy a news as I have for you, unfortunately, tonight, as you know, because I'm sure you've all read my memo.
Yeah, well, at least you have a smile on your face.
Well, I can't change the prices, which is one thing that's out of my
Yeah, I know.
control, so I just need to figure out it. But I wanted to update everybody on there, and I tried as best I could in just a couple pages to summarize where we are and looking at two, but I'm not sure it quite does it all justice, so I thought it's best that I get up here and say a few more things. But as far as really where to start, it's like no one, I think, could really envision where it was. After some of the issues we had last year, we thought we had seen pretty close to the top of what it was going to be for a while, because how could it get any worse than the delays we saw last year and the issues we had with labor and supply chain issues, to think that it was going to drive prices yet further. And unfortunately, that just hasn't been the case. Talking to contractors, they're still very hungry for work. They're telling us about other municipalities that are canceling their projects because they can't otherwise afford to do them. And that's, I think, what we're trying to avoid, is that part there. It's not going to do anybody good if we just postpone for a year and hope that prices are back down to a more, call it, normal level. History has shown that they fluctuate up and down. Unless it's something significant, like a reception, those prices are probably going to remain at an elevated level. Maybe not the 20 to 30% over last year that we saw, but easily that 10 to 20% range is not at all out of the question. So we like to try to get as much work as we can done, while understanding that prices are higher. Like I said, don't want to take that chance that next year's prices could be yet even higher than that and lose a year here in between, of work that we can do. So we want to put the taxpayers' dollars to work. This is something that hopefully we get a better handle of now. And as we look forward to it, it's going to, of course, be questions as we look to the future of how are we going to budget these things, because no one could have budgeted. A little bit of even background there on this particular project for the north side. After we got the budget from our consultant Strand, we went through and we redid their budget, and we increased it by about 5%. So we felt more comfortable with it. Not that theirs was far off, we just thought we'd fine tune it. So it wasn't even a matter to say that the consultant was wrong. We were just as far off as it was. No one had really otherwise envisioned that, and taking some of the other numbers we had, we just couldn't really foresee what it was going to be and how far across the board. We knew some of the asphalt contracts, as I said, from the earlier year, the bituminous patching contract was about 20% high, but we didn't even foresee at that point in time that this was going to be, kind of across the board, so to speak, on just about everything we have. As otherwise outlined in here as well, though, how it kind of impacts us here in the short term. We only have so much, money to spend, and altogether, you had given us probably the most I can recall since being here. There's about $4 million or so, plus or minus, to spend. So we'd like to use as much of that as we can. And we've looked at this Northside project, and I've talked with Director Lemke, and we've gotten together with our staffs and talked it over to see what others do. And we feel that there's more value in completing this project than there might be in some of the other projects. And there's probably more risk involved with waiting, as prices may otherwise go up to come back and do this one versus some of the others. So we've looked at this one, and we also, because it sounded so promising when Corey last fall had said there was about 400, if I remember, it was like 462,000, don't quote me on that, additional funding. Some of it was from transit, when there's some funds shifting around that we were going to be able to put to streets, and we thought, yes, for once we're going to get caught up on things. And so we kind of earmarked some of that to cover this. So we looked at some alternatives for this project. So if you would look back at what was in the capital budget request, there are a few additional blocks of streets put in there because we thought, we can get that covered. And we came close using last year's pricing, but we just can't overcome that for this year. To make the most of that, there are some utility redesigns within there that we feel are very important, and it kind of, unfortunately, we designed ourselves into a corner where we could, if we didn't do those alternatives, really, we couldn't get the utility improvements we were hoping to accomplish. And there are some, and Director Olympia, I'm sure if you wanted to speak to that more, but there were some improvements, which is of course in that area, like our whole project was last year of trying to alleviate some of the localized flooding. So we made some fairly significant, not as significant as last year, improvements to the stormwater utility. We also just tried to get some of the sanitary to work out a little bit better. A lot of it was very, very flat, would be substandard by DNR standards. We tried to correct those issues, and when we put it all together, we realized that the transitions on some of those areas just didn't work very well. Not to say that it couldn't be done, but it would probably not really, like I said, give anyone the value of spending their their tax dollars to do it without making those improvements. So we'd like to, it sounds opposite, and I will, during Board of Public Works, as I identified in here, be making the recommendation not only to take the base bid on a project that came in 20% higher, but also take the alternatives, which may sound crazy, but that's exactly what we think is probably the best value. And then to compensate for that, we'll look at our street resurfacing project and try to trim it back. We haven't picked exactly what it is. We're re-estimating that and looking at some other alternatives as far as what we could possibly save on that project and bring that forward. So today I'm not asking for any money, but as I lay out in the memo, we'll see what we get, and then once we bid that next project, then we'll know exactly where we're at. I don't want to trim it so far back as to not accomplish much of anything. So to try to use that, so I may very well be back asking for some money to just cover some of our contingency costs. And so I just want to let everyone know that's kind of where we stand with that. So if there's any questions, that's kind of where we're at. I wish I had better news.
Yeah, we all do, but I have a question, but I'll go to the committee. No. So this was probably, and maybe it's Director Lemke, maybe it's you, part of those improvements. One of the most heartbreaking moments in my, 3 terms on council was when we had to tell a family on the north side that it just moved in. I think it was after the 2017 storm, that the city of Stevens Point would not pay for the damages to their basement, including a furnace and all of their improvements they made in the basement, because of the not improperly sized, but sized for a different era utilities. And this will help to alleviate that. Is that correct?
Last year and this year combined definitely were designed to do what we can to alleviate that through the collection system. Last year, some really big pipes, some still pretty big pipe this year. That's why the stormwater components of this were pretty extreme cost-wise compared to a normal year, if there is such a thing anymore. And just to kind of expand on what Scott had said a little bit, we did have the very similar conversation at the Utility Commission today, in understanding that all things considered, we had also budgeted for a smaller project and a cheaper project, but all things considered, just to kind of simplify it, something that might have been going downhill west to east last year is now going downhill east to west. And so you can't cut that off in the middle and just say, oh, we're going to do that next year. Yeah. It's going to create some real issues. So they also approved moving forward with the whole project, base bid plus alternate A and B. Okay. And, I think I didn't really do the math, but I think about it's over 60% of that project is utility this year, if that makes anybody feel any better.
Just a different payer source,
right,
that's
just
all.
Different
yeah.
pocket.
Thank you, Director. Yeah, that was, I just remember them saying it came in like a rocket into their basement and they couldn't get their family out of the basement fast enough. I don't think we want that. Yeah. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Discussion and possible action on approval of additional funding for Community Stadium, Gerke Park, and KB Willett Arena building improvements. Director Kramer and I believe Mr. Sherrill are going to join us for a presentation.
Mayor, you might have to play that if you want to get the videos to play later, or you could probably do it out of that. So. Okay, first off, thank you for the time here tonight for us to go ahead and present Gerke Park project, a bigger project than what we originally planned for. So I just want to lead off by letting you know that this is a tremendous opportunity. You're going to see here later that we have not only the private business entities, we've got the 3 educational institutions, great help by Tim Sherrill and his company, as well as city staff that's been working for many hours, hard to quantify, trying to put this together. So we're going to run through basically what we've approved, what we're asking for approval tonight, as well as show a number of renderings. And again, as city staff, I think really this is a tremendous opportunity. I feel privileged to present it, and I really hope that we can blow you away with what we've got here put together. So if you want to go to the first slide. What has been already approved? As you recall, we've been working towards the useful life of the turf that's already in Gerke Park. So we had in our capital budget for 2022 to roll out the rug, so the actual turf surface that's there, and to update it to current standards because the old rug, the one that's there now, is past its useful life. It was installed in 2008. We've gotten a great life out of it, but technology has changed significantly. We have actually shock pad technology now, which we'll mention, as well as you get to a certain point and you have to replace it, especially given today's concussions, ankle injuries, knee injuries, the list goes on. So the project that we've already approved, we've bid, it's come in at budget. And the funding source we have set aside for that, due to some great planning by the project team, Tim and former Director Schrader, as well as a huge plethora of businesses back then, there was $411,000 in a reserve fund to help pay for that. In addition, the cell tower has pledged $100,000 towards it, and then the room tax committee reviewed the project and has allocated $200,000.
So, real quick, the 400,000, how that came to be was Tom Schrader and I, we went back and forth on this a long time ago, but all the fees that all of the users, the schools have been putting in, approximately 20% have gone into a fund, and that was going on in for 15 years. So that's where that 411, because we didn't want to be standing here in front of you with nothing. And that's how that came to be. So that was planning that went way back in 2008.
Additionally, any non-traditional sport or activity that couldn't be played on grass back then, that was able to be played on turf, was also put in that reserve fund as additional revenue. On the funding proposal, just in terms of how this set up, we knew that we would have a replacement cost, so we planned for it. But as we started meeting, there were some bigger aspirations. But before we got there, we wanted to show what the slide was, just on the basic plans. If you want to go to the next slide. This is where we were headed. So this is a rendering of what we'd like the field to look like. And there's components of this that don't meet the eye. The first go around, it just didn't work out that we were able to sign long-term agreements with the user groups. So we ended up in a fee-based system, and we'll talk about this a little bit. But right now, when you look at the field currently, we do not have the local branding of our local educational institutions, the 2 high school and the university, as well as some of the color concepts and marketing that we'd like to do when people come to our home, when our kids are playing in our facility. There is a number of branding from local businesses that helped us, and we intend to move forward with a very similar concept for that. So this field is where we're hoping to go. We have bid that, and we're going to have that happen by August 1st. Next slide. Why are we here today? We didn't want to just stop there. Back in 2008, Tim provided me the history of what we were hoping to accomplish then, and a number of things that just didn't line up at that point. As we talked first and foremost about some entry archways that would call recognition to some big donors that had been a part of that back then, as well as the donors that we have that are going to be a part of it now. In addition, there's been a request for an updated medical team room for people when children or anybody that's participating is injured. Currently, they're taken underneath the stadium on a dirt floor. That building was built in the 40s, late 30s. It just wasn't built for what it's being used for underneath it. In addition, the updated team room, right now we use hockey locker rooms for football teams. And while that's a great multi-use, a university football team is over 100 players. And those hockey locker rooms are sized for a hockey team, which is a fraction of that. So while we've made it work, there's always been aspirations to have a better facility for our kids, especially for our home team or hometown kids. We have some aging facilities. They're state of the art at one time, they really were. But if you've been around the area or if you've gone to our competitors, you're gonna see that a number of referendums have passed, a number of investments have been made. We're behind the times. In addition, with our aging facilities, if we put a new field in, it's gonna fall on the city in the future to try to keep up with our facilities that we have. So we saw an opportunity while we were asking for partners to come together with the private business world, our high schools, our college, as well as private funding, and the city to try to bring all that together at one time. We had requests from user groups multiple times about branding. They wanted logos. They wanted to be a part of their image. But because we didn't have those agreements back then, we didn't allow it. We had a fee structure, and it was our facility and we rented it. That's how it worked. There was a desire to have, through numerous conversations, the Pointer women back home at the Willett. We have the men, we want the women. And we have a representative tonight, the head coach. We're excited to have her speak here a little bit later. But we're here happily to say that we can make that happen, and we have the path forward to do that. In addition, the fees have come up over and over. If you want to take that part, Tim, go
Oh my
ahead.
God. I don't know how many times over the last 14 years I've heard about those. I'm sick of it. So when we started this, I said, Dan, we can do this. You want me to do this? I'll work on it. But we are ending this fee structure, and we've been able to work something out with each of the schools. And we've got long-term commitments, which you're going to see here, which eliminates all the fees. And the biggest thing we'll get into, but we've been able to also with University, Stevens Point, the Stevens Point School District and Coachella Catholic Schools worked out a reciprocity agreement with the university, which is going to be cool. So you'll see this. But this is the first time I've lived in this town all my life. The university, in my opinion, and the city have never really clicked. It just hasn't worked. This agreement is the first reciprocity agreement that I've seen that's going to be in place for 15 years, and I think it could be a model on how the university and the city and these entities can work together in other areas. Dance, theater, facilities. It all makes sense. We should work together. We're one community.
2 additional points. Right now with the fee structure, we're not always doing what's best for our kids. And what I mean by that is we do have some lower level that's playing on a grass field 100 yards away from the state-of-the-art facility. That's just not what we want to do. What we talked about as a project team, we said we want everybody in there. We're going to build the safest facility possible. That's where we want them. And we don't want $300 or $400 to get in the way like it is now. So we talk about increased usage. We've seen increased usage year by year, but we have a tremendous opportunity to have more, all the way down to youth football, 7th and 8th grade, all the way out. Lastly, we do not have a long-term agreement right now. So annually we do a contract with the user groups, and it's been great. We've worked it out. But basically, we're one conversation or upset feelings away from having a competing facility or not having a long-term agreement or losing the revenue that actually supports that facility right now. So the model that we have here tonight that we're going to show is a 15-year commitment, both operationally and capital-wise, where we're going to be partners in this thing for the long haul.
Just on that note, it's kind of interesting. Is it? You realize-
Mr. Sherrill, could you come a little bit
I'm
closer
sorry.
there?
It's just
Thank
one
you.
of the things that was really interesting when we got into this. We kind of stumbled into this, but the Stevens Point School District has no agreement with the university. They use this fields out here for their Phi Ed and their football practices every single day. There's no agreement. It's unbelievable to me. Now there's a 15-year agreement and it's rolling and it'll perpetuate forever.
This slide is just to show that this thing's really been like a snowball. It started with a couple people talking in a room, even back in 2008. And we've had, this slide actually isn't even in a full representation. We've met with all the educational institutions. We've met with a number of businesses. We couldn't put it on one slide. But you'll see several different departments that have been involved, numerous business owners, donor sponsors, private businesses. Honestly, we've tried to go top to bottom in this process, just getting everyone to come to the table and offer their input. Next slide. So what steps did we take? We started by just discussing what the project was and what we thought it could be. And we also wanted to know if it would even fit, if it was constructible, if our building and zoning department could permit it. So an architect was brought in with some of the reserve funds to just do some real high-level conceptual drawings and some cost estimates. And we're going to show this to you here in a little bit. We got the renderings, we talked about what it could look like, and then we started talking about functionality. How do we move the different user groups through the facility? If we have a double header between football or hockey, can it all work? And then we met with the stakeholders to say, hey, this is what we envision, how does it work for you? And we tried to get a lot of different input and feedback so that when we got to this stage, we felt confident with our plan.
In 2008, we spent $1.6 million on this project. When we started, it was at 1.8. Now we ended up at 5.6. Well,
Oops.
Next slide. So what do we discover? We ranked them in terms of priorities and what we're hoping to accomplish here. I want to mention that through this 1 through really 16, but 15 list, later on in this presentation, we're going to talk about if we come up short, things that could be either added or done later. First and foremost, though, turf replacement is the first thing that everyone agreed we need to do. We want to get the shock pad, which will reduce concussions, it'll reduce ankle injuries, knee injuries, those movable parts, by up to 80% is what we're being told. It's the safest technology available. In addition, we're looking at a thatched surface, which is basically a third layer of artificial turf that will add to the longevity. Again, it adds to the playability as well as the surfacing. And that surface, if we put it in here, will be consistent with what's around us. And the university field, which we're going to talk about later, will also have that technology. So we'll be all consistent across these turf fields within the city of Stevens Point. Number two, if you've been in the restrooms at that location underneath the grandstands, you'll know that they are due for a facelift. And that's being politically correct about it. We want to make them look nice. And that's really important because everyone utilizes them. So number two, we said we have to do some toilet upgrades. We intend to do some of that with city staff to cut down some of their costs, but that was number two. The Jumbotron, if you go around to any stadium complex, whether it's high school all the way up now obviously to professional, these video boards have really become next level and they've become just normal with these facilities. We've got that in our plan, and later on we're going to unveil who's going to be a big contributor to that. That's standing pretty close to me. The mascots and smoke in terms of running out through the tunnel. So if you've ever gone to facilities, especially at the higher levels, you'll see a mascot or something that teams can take the field through. Number one, it gives kids identity when they come through. It makes it fun for all the student athletes as well as cheerleaders, parents, youth night. We've got that included that all three schools would have that branding to be able to come through. We mentioned the arches in 2008. That's included in this plan so that we can call attention not only from a branding and stadium standpoint when you enter the facility, but also for all those private partners and people that are involved with this project. It's a promise we made in 2008. We're going to stand by that. That's number 5 here on this list. Number 6 was the team room. One thing I want to mention about the team room, we're going to show you an above grade first floor leveled team room that'll hold a full university team. In addition, it's a flexible space, so it can double as a rental property or a rental room for the city in off times of the year. It also can serve for off-ice time for both the men's and women's program for UWSP, as well as any of the high schools as we're transitioning between locker rooms. On the team room, we included an unfinished basement. We're going to talk about this in the funding piece. The time to build the basement is now if we want a future ability to expand. But we don't have it right now. We don't have the users to quick expand in there. But once we build the building, we can't add it later. So $435,000 incorporates an unfinished basement. But again, as we talk about the funding, that's one of the items that is not an absolute need right now, but we believe it will be in the future. The women's hockey locker room is incorporated within that. By building the first level team room, it allows us to remodel a basement locker room, which would allow the women to have their dedicated space, just like the men, and we would be bringing the women back here for a 15-year minimum term, which is obviously operational revenue for the city, a tremendous opportunity. 1 through 7 is how we're going to say we've got funded. We're going to show you this later. Already done, set to go. 8 through 15 are items we believe we will fund, and we have a plan for it. We have many meetings set up, but we just want to call attention that as we prioritized it, these are the items we would start to look at phasing or doing later if we can't pay for it with donors. The KB Willett South recladding. As you look at the facility, and we mentioned aging facilities, in this project we have basically a complete facelift, new siding, that is incorporated on the south side of the Willett. So when you'd sit in the stadium, it looked like a new building that's sitting there without redoing the new building itself. We have the east side recladding. If you're going to wrap the whole south side of the stadium, many of our users or visitors come from the east side on Minnesota Avenue. So we got an estimate to do the east side so you'd have a complete picture or remodel upgrade to that facility. The east end vestibule, this is an item that is budgeted in the capital budget for 2023. The reason it's needed, right now when you open the doors on the east side, it's very close to the ice. It softens the ice. So the hockey teams can speak about the playability of ice as the warm air comes into the cold facility. So back when we did the major project in 2019, it wasn't able to be funded. We incorporated it now. If we're doing all those building projects, we believe it'll be cheaper for the city and us to do it now with this bigger project than to do it as a standalone in a couple of years.
And that's $100,000.
100,000, correct.
And that was already in the budget for 2023. We're just asking you to move it up. And if you don't want to do it now, that's fine, but it should be done now.
Yeah. A couple other items, the roof screen. If you've been in the stadium and you look over, you see all the hardware and things on top of the KB Willett. This incorporates a roof screen to, again, kind of box in that brand new feel of the stadium, and the Jumbotron will sit next to it, and we're about to show a fly-through. We have 1,000 chairs in this proposal because the turf and the type of chairs we're looking to install would allow us to have assemblies, graduations, concerts, anything we'd like in the stadium. It'd be pretty much the only location we're aware of in Stevens Point where if you put the 1,000 chairs out, you could have 5,000 people in one location if you had a major assembly. We did get inquiries during COVID for commencement outside, and at that time we couldn't hold it. This would set us up that not only commencements, but other things could happen in Gerke Stadium in a facility that's built for it. And those 1,000 chairs are incorporated that these user groups that are pledging would have access to it in addition to the city.
There's nowhere really within, we can't think of any place, an outdoor facility today within even 45, 50 miles of here that can hold 5,000 people. So this could be a really interesting thing. And, you know, I can see somebody be coming back and ask you to buy a stage.
Last items real quick, recladding of the west restroom, we'd like to brand the whole area, so that's towards the end of the list. Turfing West Willett Grass Field. So over here on the west end, if you've been on that location, you'll know that we mow it. The schools actually work with us to line it so that some of their lower levels can play on it. But it's really due for a facelift. If turf would allow it to be played for a lot more than what it's played right now, we have that incorporated as well as number 15. One other mention, we got a lot of feedback from all the user groups and some not involved with this project that there is a need for an enclosed domed turf surface in Stevens Point. That is not incorporated here. The costs are just cost prohibitive right now. But we did want to mention that people were asking for it, so we just want to make sure we told everyone.
And that was talked about in 2008. So some of the people we've gone to, they bring it up. So we're just trying to be very straightforward. It is not part of this project. Candidly, it's another $3.3 million.
To bring this to life, here's a fly-through which shows more of what those renderings and the cost estimates we're about to present are.
Tim, get the microphone.
That donor thing, that's not exactly what it's gonna look like, but it's just a filler, just as we were making this. It'll be bigger than that. That panther there, that spash, that's, the kids will run through that right there, and on the back side there'll be smoke. So when they come out, it'll be all smoke. We'll have one of those. That's how they'll take the field and leave the field. Yes, all these fields are lined for lacrosse, men's and women's, high school and collegiate, and soccer, men's and women's as well. And the interesting thing about it is lacrosse lines are identical to the field that 8-man football is played on, and currently there's no turf field that's lined for 8-man football in the state of Wisconsin. We're on a state tournament.
As you look, this is the recladding of the actual press box that we incorporated.
The decorative metal, and then all the windows will be replaced as well. That's the west side. As I said, that's not what it looks like. That's just a filler for the picture. It'll be larger than that with any donors making sure that everybody is recognized. There's that blow-up panther the kids will run through with the smoke. That's the complete recladding of all, that will look like a brand new building. That facade roof is a metallic. It's actually kind of a convenience store thing that we do. It's not even attached to the building. It's like a fence. But what it'll do is we went up into the stadium and we got an angle. You'll never be able to see any of that crap on the top of Willett anymore.
Okay, Mayor, next slide.
Not done yet.
It's done.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so as you look at this drawing, this is the existing footprint of the KB Willett Arena, except for that, I'm going to call it bottom right-hand corner, so the southeast corner. What we're proposing after reviewing it with the architect is that the addition to the facility for the main floor team room would be on that southeast corner. It would be between the western edge of the existing parking lot and the basically southern edge of the current office. So it does not impact the parking lot, does not impact the track. It kind of sandwiches in between that. You can see the chairs that are set up. That's so it can be a flexible space. It's not a lockered facility. It's set up more that because our schools come in, a lot of times some of them will actually be partially dressed and they carry their shoulder pads. They can come in, they can dress to the complete game attire. They can take the field, come back and forth. They leave after. Chairs can be stacked up and they can be utilized as a multi-flexible space. We'd have AV equipment. TVs, things like that, so that teams could watch film and stuff in there as well.
110 players.
Yeah, 110 players. Additionally, we have restroom facilities on the main floor, so there's, I think it's 6 urinals and 2 toilets that are there, so the teams can access it right away. And that medical facility we talked about is where Tim is pointing right now. There's a gator proposed in this project that we would cover, so that if a player was injured on the field, they could be driven over to that medical facility. The door could be closed. It's completely closed, screened off, confidential, so if a player has to remove clothing. And we have it so that the ambulance can back up to the door, load the player out, or the spectator, whoever's having a medical emergency, without having to delay the game. We had one last year, I think that was.
Yeah, there was a game last year I was at, I think it was 20, 25 minutes by the time the ambulance got there, because they couldn't move the guy because they had nowhere to go. So by this, the gator will be able to drive immediately inside, complete temperature control, running water, completely medical, anything medical we will have to make available in there.
And that facility will double for both the ice season as well as football. So it can be outdoor and indoor activities that medical room would be applicable for.
Today hockey's in the basement closet.
They are, yep.
Yeah, the hockey, currently, if a person gets hurt in the hockey, it is literally a closet that has been converted to a medical complex. That'll be used for hockey as well.
You'll also notice the doorway connects to the actual team room, so it's easy for trainer, staff, and things to be back and forth. And then there's a little coach's office that's added onto our office that the teams can utilize, as well as in the seasons when we don't have athletics going on. It's a flexible space for seasonal employees and things to work as we have other work going on. The other room is a storage room. That's where the 1,000 chairs would go, as well as the inflatables, so that it's easy access for anyone utilizing the facility. Next slide.
In the parking.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So this shows the bottom floor where the Pointer women's hockey locker room would be. You can kind of see where that is where the, yep, exactly. So that is currently what we call locker room 3 and 4, used for away football. That would be remodeled because home football would be moving upstairs, and then away football would be going to what is currently the home football's locker rooms. You'll also notice that the way that basement is laid out is it shows that 2 locker rooms could fit in it. We're not building those right now. We just have basically a box is what we're framing in. But it shows that as usage increases, right now we're estimating about 75,000 a year. We anticipate that to go up exponentially. Down the road, as locker rooms are needed or any other sort of space, you'd have the basement to go ahead and design that as you need. I forgot to mention on the first floor that the parking lot, we show 1 stall as the ambulance access. So you'd have a direct contact where no vehicles are parked in front of that medical room at any time. So this shows what the basement space could look like, as well as what the Pointer women's locker room would be located. And then the further renderings here will show what they actually look like. Mayor, next slide. So here's that outside still, instead of flying through, that shows that facade improvements on the south end. You'll notice we have donor sign above the team room. That's one of the donor asks that we intend to solidify. You'll also notice that we have the screening up top, and on the other end, which we'll show you in a second, we do anticipate seeking donors potentially for the medical room if someone's interested as well. Next slide. Here's what it shows. So again, you've got the storage on the left, the medical room on the right, and again, one more opportunity that we potentially may seek is going to be the medical room branding for a donor. Next slide. This shows that east end with the vestibule, so you can notice with the new signage up top that we planned for. If we don't do that, so if the funding request doesn't go through tonight, we'd leave it out, and that can happen. It's not that it can't happen, but you'd end up with the new look of the new addition, and then you'd have, I'm going to call the more tired look, and a future addition with the vestibule at a later date. So the reason we're here tonight for that portion is this is in our plan. We think doing it now will save us some money, and it'll get it done at the same sequence. We believe it finishes it. It finishes kind of the plan of this major upgrade, and this is kind of a rendering to show that location.
That's 100 grand.
And that's 100,000
That's
for
100,000.
for the vestibule, and another 100,000 to do the east end recladding. That still also showed the asphalt path to the team room. If you notice right there where an ambulance can drive in. Next slide. Here shows the recladding or the new steel siding of the actual press box, as well as new windows. Another facility that's not been updated in a number of years. Next slide. And here is what a rendering looks like of what the Pointer women's locker room could look like. Again, branding it for the Pointer women, bringing them home. That's really the way we're phrasing it here for the project team. Next slide. This just shows the other side with the coach's office, as well as a TV or a video board for them to watch film. Here's a slide rendering of what one of those tunnels would look like for the Pointers. Next slide. There's the Cardinals. And here is the Splash Panthers. Reciprocity. One more item that Tim mentioned about this that's a really huge component of this project is that when we set out by Tim's virtue of being involved with a number of things in the community, he was aware of a major upgrade going on at UWSP. There is a plan, we're going to show you a fly-through of multiple turf fields behind their campus. In the 15-year agreement that we have locked in for letters of understanding, we have set it up that not only the high schools, but all city groups will have reciprocity usage of those turf athletic facilities. So there'll be one point of contact at no cost. Both lights and the fields will be available to those user groups to go ahead and utilize those locations and vice versa. And again, it's a 15-year commitment with the ability for all three groups to basically re-up and extend that. So it's a long-term commitment between all the user groups. And again, no fees to those user groups. So especially, as you can imagine, there's a lot of times when the college is out of session or they're away, that those fields sit empty. Our vision, and the university has agreed, is that it can be utilized by our community, which is really a tremendous. We thought it wasn't going to go through right away, at least, and everybody seems to be on board with that.
I was at, I think, 3 meetings with the university on that subject, and I'll be honest with you, I thought that might have been the hardest sell. I really did. I was like, okay, it's never been done before. 3 meetings, never got a no vote. Three unanimous votes. Everybody was for it. Everybody saw it. They go, this makes sense. We have facilities sitting over there doing nothing for a lot of times. You look at all the times at our high schools, you know, they're baseball. Right now, this spring, baseball, softball, they've just not been able to practice. You start putting 3-4 turf fields in this community, it changes the ball game. It's a huge changer. So the other thing about this really quick is the way we set this up is at the end of 10 years, each group has to either give a 5-year notice that they're out, or they can re-up for another 5 years, meaning so it's a rolling 10. So every single 5-year increment, you're always going to be out 10 years. So if anybody ever backs out of this, you've got a 5-year window to fix the problem.
So again, words don't do justice. Let's go to the next fly-through to show you what those fields are going to look like at the university.
This is coming in 2023, and it will be built.
Play them here. Can you play that? Go back.
Oh, it's a player.
Yeah.
Are those football fields?
You'll see
Yep.
them.
This is behind Berg Gym right now. This is the practice fields. They're reconverting. All of this is going to be brand new turf in 2023.
But all football, no
Football,
other.
soccer, lacrosse.
Football, soccer, yeah, all sports. Also coming in 2025, across kitty corner from Schmeekley is going to be another one of these with a full 9-lane competitive track. Currently, UWSP is an awesome indoor facility. If anybody you've seen Coleman Field, it's like hasn't been I don't think they've run a track meet there in 20 years, and they're going to convert that to a rugby field, a grass rugby field. Then they're going to build another one over there. So actually, they'll have 3, and that track is all, and that third field is also included in this reciprocity agreement. So if our high schools in the future, if there's no track meet going on over there, they can hold a track meet at the state-of-the-art brand new facility. So we'll have 2 facilities to hold track and field.
Okay, you should go to the next slide, Mayor. Okay, so the financials, obviously a big piece of this. First and foremost, as we went to a fee process back in 2008, we have budgeted revenue and expenses that offset. So we engaged the comptroller's office really early on in this process to make sure we can make our budget whole. So how this is set up at the bare bones level here is that there's an operational pledge and a capital pledge by each institution that's part of this agreement. So we average basically what they've been using historically, also what we're budgeting for revenue, and we didn't shortfall that to try to do the capital. So the comptroller's reviewed it, he's aware of it. When the pledge amounts come in, we right now have a 15-year agreement, or letters of understanding, showing $134,000 in annual revenue year 1. And again, that's based off of actual usage that's been happening. They're split between Gerke Park, KB Willett Arena, and they're based on what we're collecting right now on an a la carte basis. Obviously, revenue or usage is going to go up slightly, so we accounted for that in the operational pledge. Additionally, we did an inflationary increase of 2.5% within that 15-year pledge so that we could account for changing times here over the next 15 years. And we worked with the comptroller's office so that that split and how it would work out. We have a fund available, and some of that 2.5% increase is going to go to the future fund for Gerke Park, because as we know, turf will expire again in 15 or 18 years. We want to be prepared for that. So in the operational pledges, we've built in, very similar to our 20% model, that as this money comes in, we can make the budget whole and have that roughly 20% going to replacement, so that we're fair to the educational institutions that are putting money up front, as well as the city, that we're not coming back saying, oh, now we have no money for turf. So before it was a la carte, now it's built in up front. We also have some potential new revenue sources that can go for future turf replacement should the schools want to do that. Talking about basically premier parking, if there was premier parking stalls that wanted to be charged for. Something that's been talked about a lot, but we've never put on paper. So potentially new, still working out the details of that, but if that happens, there'd be a portion of that going into a future replacement of the field. Next slide. The capital funding. So Tim had mentioned 5.6 million. So here's the breakout. The 2008 reserve project fund balance is 411,000. Tonight, the ask in the last slide, as we mentioned in the memo, is 420,000. Additionally, the room tax pledge was 200,000. There's 100,000 coming from the Gerke cell tower. The capital pledges that we've talked about over the 15 years for UWSP is 450,000. The Stevens Point Area Public Schools pledge over that 15 years is 337,500. Pacelli Catholic Schools, Inc., the 225. The operational revenue debt payment, that's referencing some of the funds we'd allocate from the operational pledge that we worked with Corey on, around that 20%, 243. Youth football has pledged 45,000. Youth lacrosse has pledged 45,000. The Mendyke family, who I believe is also here tonight, graciously pledged $100,000. Sherrill Companies, Team Sherrill, has pledged $350,000. And Stevens Point Orthopedics, who I also believe has a representative here tonight, has pledged, happily stepped up and pledged $350,000 to be a part of this as well. So as of today, as we stand, a little over almost 3.3 million is in hand and pledged, with subscription agreements coming, that we'd be ready to move forward with this project. We have 7 or 8 meetings set up with remaining donors that we'll be moving forward with here in the very near future, seeking what's remaining for the $2.3 million that we look to perform the entire project. I mentioned early on, if we came up short, how would we handle it? And you remember we had the 2 columns of items that we would perform. We're committed, and we've already moved through basically 1 through 7. We're set to go on that. The other side, the right side of the column, based on how we come up with funding, those are the items we'd look to either reduce or change if we didn't hit the goal, even though we believe we can. One other item I wanted to mention was the basement. In terms of football and in terms of what we're moving forward with, if the basement came out, everything else can still happen. So, just being fully transparent, if we got to the end of this and we came up $400,000 short, that's an item that the city would likely be asked, and we'd have a conversation, obviously, as staff, as one of the leading donors part of the project, to say, we're taking this out. Or does the city, we feel that we should move forward with allocating some more money because we think that basement should be done now. So right now, we've committed, Tim's committed to try to raise those dollars. So we're looking forward to doing that as part of the project. But with that said, if we couldn't achieve it, that's also one item built in the team room that I'm gonna call as optional currently.
And realistically, if we end up getting enough money to put turf Willett West, which would be a second turf field, you're gonna need 2 locker rooms. It's that simple.
So real quickly here, with approval, we're gonna have dollars remaining at the end of this to have future upgrades done in the park. We've accounted for that within the operational and capital pledges. We have those letters of understandings at this point with all 3 of the schools, and obviously we'd be moving towards legal, but we wanted to go through this approval process before we went to that. But everyone's has seen it, looked at it, we're ready to move forward. There's some tremendous quality of life opportunities here. So in addition to the athletic departments that are gonna obviously benefit from it, the city having the large revenue potential that we're locking in, there's community event potential here. So again, whether that be concerts, gatherings, community celebrations from, say, companies that are part of this, they'll have opportunities to be out there. But exercise and recreation, that track and that facility, that turf, when the snow starts to melt, I mean, it's packed. People are there all the time. Arguably one of our busiest exercising and assembly areas, even outside of athletics. Better access to clean restrooms, I think everybody wins on that piece. The really other piece, though, that's really big here that we can't quite quantify, but it's tremendous, it has to be talked about, is more hotel stays. When we bring in more teams, when the Pointer women are playing double headers with the men, in addition to when they're just playing themselves during the week, we're gonna have more hotel stays that come out of this. Increased tourism dollars for area businesses between gas, people staying here, eating here, visiting. Increased camps and clinics. By having up to 5 turf fields, within a third of a mile of each other, there's huge opportunity for bidding on soccer, football, softball, all sorts of different camps and clinics and games, tournaments that we don't have right now because we don't have those facilities. And increase the ability to bid on those large events, because now we can say we have the locker rooms, we have the intergovernmental cooperation between the entities, we have more than just the city or just one of the schools that can bid on that. We can do it collectively. And really the biggest piece, not save for last because it's the least, it's really save for last because it's the most important. It's the safest for our kids in our community. Right now we have kids playing in places that they should be on that field, and this makes that happen. It's the safest place for them, and we're committed to making that happen. One important note that I did want to mention in this presentation so that I don't come back in a month for something else.
This has nothing to do with me. Go on record.
Yeah. In the 2021 budget, it moved into 22, we do have a roof recoating plan for the Willett. And Director Badun was up here before talking about rising costs. We had a higher bid than we would award earlier this year, so we rejected it. We are taking water on that facility when we have heavy, large rain events. So we're evaluating the roof. There's going to be a larger repair needed. And $75,000, which is currently in the budget, is not going to cover it. I don't have more specifics today. We're working with the engineering department as well as a roofing specialist to get the full parameters of it. But we will be coming back. I'll be coming back in the future with the full bid numbers when we get to that point this year about the roof replacement. And I wanted to mention that because it's not part of this project. It's something we're already doing in our capital budget, but there will be another piece to this that we'll be looking at here later this year. So what are we asking for today? As the memo stated, we in the letters of understanding stated that we are looking to bond this through the city. So the upfront costs spread.
It was done in 08.
Yep, it was done. It was done the first time go around. We had 100% pledge payoffs. It was also done for Zenoff Park most recently in 2019. So that's the first ask. Spread out potentially over 2 years. While the field, the jumbotron, the bathrooms, we know will be done by August 1st. Construction, as you all know, is likely going to carry over into 2023. Then there's a $420,000 ask out of the $5.6 million. So that's the only funding ask tonight that's coming from the committee. The $220,000 is being requested from fund balance for the overall project funding, and that relates back to an early on meeting when we were setting the budget initially and how that would work if we could bring additional revenue from the Pointer Women and this reciprocity agreement. And then the other two items are things that one was planned, the East End vestibule for $100,000 in 2023, and one is again to try to have a consistent look on the east side recladding for $100,000. The third item was just off my last slide stating, and full disclosure, I don't know what extent, but I'll be back with a roof project bid award in the future as well once we've got that solidified. So those are the really two components tonight primarily. 3 asks on the funding side, $420,000 in total, and the 10-year bonding potentially spread out over 2 years. With that, we can answer questions, but that concludes our initial presentation.
Thank you very much, and Mr. Sherrill, if I have anything to sell, I'm definitely going to call you, because you are an enthusiastic salesperson, so thank you. You obviously care passionately about this. Back in 1969, 70, 71, 72, and into 73, I marched on that surface, but it was grass. And a little muddy at times.
Very muddy.
Long time ago.
Very muddy.
Yeah. By Robert's Rules of Order, to bring it to the floor for discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Tomorrow I move to approve the $420,000.
Thank you, Alder Morrow and Alder Dalton. And we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a time need for one of our members?
I think we do, yeah.
Okay. I'm asking the committee director contacted me today. One of the members of the public who wishes to speak on this topic has a time commitment. If the committee is all right, we'd allow the members of the public to speak first. Excellent, excellent. All right, thank you, and please come forward if you have anything to say. I know we have a number of people here who wish to speak. I will say that I did receive communication from Sarah Brish from the Central Wisconsin Convention and Visitors Bureau, and they are strongly in support. Of course, the letter will go on file. Happy to, now's your time to speak. Please come forward. Identify yourself, please. Your name is fine. You don't have to mention where you live, but if you have an affiliation, please indicate that.
Yeah, good evening. My name is John Vollendorf. I'm the principal at SPASH. And I'm here tonight not only representing the high school, but also on behalf of our school district. I've had the privilege of being part of this district and this community for 27 years, first as a teacher and as a coach. And what Tim said earlier is absolutely right. This is a game changer. This is something that not only our school and district are in full support of, but again, as a former teacher, as a former coach, and as someone who works with our young people and my colleagues from other organizations constantly, the reciprocity involved here, when combined with these improvements, would just be incredibly, incredibly helpful and just overall extremely good for kids every month of the year. So please consider supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
I'm Larry Tice, and I'm not going on Survivor with John. But I represent Pacelli High School. I'm the principal over there. And again, just thank you for the consideration. Thank you to Tim Sherrill and all of his hard work. But I just think the potential for this complex. I'm the one who is pushing 8-man football. Not that Pacelli's going 8-man, but WIAA is right here in this community. Their current 8-man state tournament is run in Wood County. What an incredible opportunity for us to bring a state tournament for WIAA right here. I also know WIAA is considering bringing lacrosse into a full WIAA sanctioned sport. What a great opportunity for us to bookend a state tournament in the fall, a state tournament in the spring. And from a revenue standpoint, boom, just blows the mind what could happen with that type of a facility. So I think it's just amazing work by everybody involved, and again, strongly support the movement of both the committee and the city.
Thank you, sir. Next. You can.
It's okay, Jim, you can go on deck.
Yeah, if you want to just go around to the back and sort of line up, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Hi, I'm Ann Ninneman. I'm the women's hockey coach at the university. Prior to that, I came here in 2001 as a student athlete, and that closet that you're talking about, that athletic training room, that was our former locker room. So we then made the move out to Ice Hawks Arena. We've had a fabulous home there for the last 20 years, but I agree that I'm excited for us and the opportunity to move home and have a locker room with bathrooms and a shower for our ladies. Those are well-earned, well-deserved for us. We're also excited to level the playing field in the WIAC. That's thrilling for our university to have that, in addition to collaborating with the city on a lot of different activities, and to have our women over there readily available to help. We did a skate over there earlier this week, or earlier this month. That was great, and our ladies were there because the men were, most of them were on spring break. So we're excited to be back in the Willet again, and the flexibility of scheduling is amazing. And like I said, again, the collaboration with the city is going to be very, very exciting with our university as a whole, as well as our athletic department.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Jim Mendyke Jr., and I'm here to represent the Mendyke family and Stevens Point Youth Lacrosse. It's great to see you. Well, I wrote that before this happened, but I don't see my doctor here, so I think I'm okay.
We're just glad you're here with us.
Yeah, I had surgery to repair my retina, but I certainly wanted to make sure I made it here to support the project.
Yeah.
Gerke Park has always had a special meaning to my family. My father, Jim Mendyke Sr., graduated from P.J. Jacobs in 1947, and he had many great memories from playing football on that field, and he was able to watch his 6 children play on the field and most of his 17 grandchildren. And I'm excited for the time when his great-grandchildren will have the opportunity to play there as well. So when my dad passed over 10 years ago, we knew how much Gerke Park meant to him. So he donated his memorial gifts to the prior renovation project, and as Dan mentioned, we're excited to be a part and sponsor part of this new renovation. I also represent the Stevens Point Youth Lacrosse program, where we teach 2nd through 8th graders how to play the sport of lacrosse. We're actually the feeder system for the Pacelli United Lacrosse High School team, which has players from Pacelli, Spash, and Wisconsin Rapids. By upgrading the park, that'll give our youth program an opportunity to stay competitive with the Bay Valley Conference, because they all have turf fields, and they're practicing right now while we're kind of sitting in the back waiting for things to dry out. So we all know renovation is overdue. Let's give Gerke Park the upgrade it deserves and help create memories for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Others? I see Alder Kneebone is coming forward. Anyone else, if you want to get in the queue, please do so.
Yeah, Mary Kneebone, District 7 Alder, the district that houses Ice Hawks Arena and the Portage County Youth Soccer. So I've been a supporter of women's hockey, was excited to know that they were down the street from me when I bought my house, and I'm really sad to see them leave. I understand the need to be closer, the need for upgraded facilities. We're really turning this into quite an entertainment venue. Smoke and running through little animals that represent your team, my goodness sakes. I have some concerns about that little tiny parking lot. When the women's hockey team is over there, football games, I don't see anything to address the need for improved parking for all these great events that we're gonna have there. And I certainly hope there's not gonna be a big effect on revenues in District 7 with the loss of the women's hockey program and the potential loss of soccer revenues as well. So although I'm supportive with mixed feelings.
Thank you very much, Alder Kneebone. Yes, sir.
Not great at public speaking. I'm Brian Moss. I'm actually president of Stevens Point Youth Football. So our program's been around for 27 years. We average 150 to 160 kids per year. So that means 27 years, that's 4,000 kids that went through our program. So, I mean, our number one goal of our program is always the kids have fun and the kids be safe and that they learn football. So, as they were saying before, this field definitely, is a priority for us would be the safety features of it. We're blessed to have many seasons of no injuries, and we obviously want to keep it this way. There has been years, our kids were the ones that were playing on lawns. These kids, parents get them involved, these kids get excited to play. We do what we can to give them good equipment and everything else, and then we don't really have a spot to play. With this agreement, we can utilize on Saturday mornings when it's available and one night a week. So that's where we were on board to give a long-term commitment so that we have a spot that we can call our home.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cindy Weber. I'm president of Bocelli Catholic Schools, and I'm new to the community. I've only been here for about a little over a year and a half, but wow. I mean, talk about outstanding collaboration, talk about community support, talk about building a facility that's going to be used in multiple facets. Such an exciting opportunity that none of our individual organizations could do on our own. So I just want to give compliments to those that have done a ton of work on this project. The community spirit is outstanding. I think the potential for future bringing in larger groups and different things like that is outstanding. So I want to give our full support from Bocelli Catholic Schools and to thank everybody for all the hard work they've done to make this happen.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. One of the ones who will be one of our new alders. Welcome.
Thank you. Dean Shuda, I've lived here all my life. I don't think it can be understated, the safety factor in this, the playing facilities and in the medical facility that they're going to be playing in. A lot of the sports now are dangerous, needless to say football, but to have a medical facility available that close and to get them to be treated can't be understated, I don't believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Going. Gone. All right, thank you, everyone. Did you want to address the parking? Yeah.
Great question on the parking. So it's not just the Minnesota lot that does service the KB Willett in the football stadium. So actually the lot that is out here for the PD as well as PJ Jacobs, anytime that school's not in session, that whole area is what services the west entry. And then obviously there's street parking too. But this whole lot, if you come on a game night, whether it be during the winter or a football game, you'll see this whole side of the complex also parked, which is within Gerke Park and is part of the overall complex.
Thank you.
And we'll have to do asphalt here soon.
Yes, absolutely.
I was looking for Casey Kuso, but I didn't see what
All
his
right.
name is.
Thank you, Director. All right, bringing it back to the committee. Thank you, committee, for being gracious to allow the community to speak first. Alder Slawinski, please.
First off, I want to thank Mr. Sherrill, all the people involved for putting this together. I think this is a great plan. As I talked to Director Kramer last week, I do have some reservations. I guess first one I'm going to start from is it sounds like we're recladding the press boxes. Is the actual structure of that facility, being so old, is it sound where, I mean, it's going to last for, 25, 50 years? I mean, I just don't want to put, put a new face on it and then find out that we have to, I mean, has that been, I'm assuming that's been looked into?
Yeah, we walked through with the architect that did the conceptual drawings, so they stated based on their review that the recladding would be okay, and there's nothing internally. Obviously, when we would do design, we'd look at roof and some of the other pieces of it to make sure, but they did walk through the facility.
Okay. I have a few questions here. Being that it's going to be a no-fee structure now, moving forward, how, and I noticed when you had the list of contributors, the amounts were different. How is that going to be as far as prioritizing and scheduling events? I mean, I'm assuming you have that worked out, but I guess it's just more of a clarification. I'd just like to hear.
Sure, so we can take football to start. So the UWSP would send their football schedule first. The games would go in, typically on Saturdays. We have it written that the public school district and the Catholic school district alternate who has priority based on even year or odd year, because Friday nights they conflict. So the athletic directors typically will communicate a little bit ahead of time, and usually we run into 2 or 3 Fridays where they may have a doubleheader. So even years, Pacelli would be the late game. Odd years, SPASH should be the late game. It's actually how we function currently.
Okay.
Following that, it actually then goes on to games for the youth groups, so youth area football pledged, so they'd be able to put their times in. After the games go in, then we open it to practice time, same sequence. So if the Pointer men want to go out first, the high schools, a lot of times they practice at slightly different times. After practice times fall in for all the pledged users, then we open it on a fee basis to anybody that wants to just rent the complex. So it's basically a priority pecking order is how it works. Similar in the KB Willett Arena, how it'll work is the Pointers actually practice primarily during the day. So I'm going to call it not non-marketable ice, but you don't have a lot of user groups that are competing for school day ice. So it actually, from a business standpoint, helps the city quite a bit to be able to bring the Pointer women over and have them primarily between 6 a.m. and 3:30. So you're able to basically sell some ice time we weren't before. In addition to that, they are going to add some evening game times. So very similarly, guys and girls schedule goes in first, then SPASH high school schedule goes in next. We have a couple other big user groups like Crystal Ice Figure Skating Club and some others that are really our anchor tenants. They come in right behind them. Then we open it to some of the other groups that just rent an hour here or there. They still pay that hourly a la carte rate versus this has been negotiated with the user groups, a blanket amount based on averages. And then we've got it set that, say they go into the tournament, their tournament games are included, but if we do a neutral site or if they have an extra game of some sort of fun, something out of the ordinary of their schedule, we go right back to a fee structure. So we've kind of laid out a basically ground rule so both sides are aware of what's included and what's not.
Okay.
And there's also, on the reciprocity agreement, the university, there's already a pecking order already laid out on that as well.
Okay. I guess one concern I have from the financial aspect of it is I just get nervous with, funding projects like this that aren't budgeted, that aren't discussed and hashed out, the prior year. Is there a reason why we have to, this has to be done now and it can't wait until, this fall, talk about it within the budget and then move forward with it in 2023? I mean, and I think I did asked you that last week. So, I mean, I guess is it, and another thing I guess I have a concern with is we just had another agenda item. Everything is so expensive right now. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, I know that, but I just get a little, is it the right timing, I guess? Is there why is it like now? We have to do it now.
So a couple things. So in terms of the other costs that the city is going to be looking at, one unique thing here is that this is, other than $420,000, this is entirely funded by donors and the schools. So the city's actual pledge, while we're asking for the bonding, The rest of it, while it would be on quote-unquote the balance sheet or our borrowing, the funding mechanism is entirely on the subscription agreements. And the other two comparisons, 08 and then Xenoff in 19, were 100% on repayments. So while they're obviously, and Corey can speak to this much better than I can, how we repay it is not, you know, necessarily competing with the other projects because it's coming from subscription agreements. So that's that piece. The turf field's going in this summer, so we have to have it ready for August 1st. So the emphasis or the discussion here about the bonding and the money going in is we're currently meeting with donors, and our intention is to try to break ground this fall, potentially even in summer. That way when they're playing in the fall and things are happening with the actual games and athletic events, the Pointer women obviously will also have games coming already in the fall that we're underway. We fully anticipate, given supply chain and everything that's going on, for it to carry over further. So that's kind of the way that the emphasis is setting up. We, as we're meeting with donors, are just painting this timeline of how this is coming together, and with the field going in the summer and then the Pointer women transitioning over in the fall, getting those locker rooms going. We're anticipating a several-month construction season. You know, we wouldn't be ready for next football season if we delayed, as well as based on the pledges that are coming in, you know, as you can see with the 3.2 million, this thing's really gaining a lot of steam right now. So that was based on our timing to try to get a sequence, basically. Field goes down, start renovations, and then hopefully by early next year, we're completed and we're back to fully operational in compliance with what we've promised the schools from an agreement standpoint.
And just to verify, you had said, you know, you were saying the 420 that you're asking from the city is not being paid back. That's our portion. You're saying, when you were saying the repayment, that's the bonding for the rest of the project.
Correct. So I think it's a little under 7% at the 420, and then the rest of the 5.6 million is based on donors and the operational pledges and capital pledges from the schools.
Yeah, correct. Okay. And again, and this might be a little biased to me because my daughter played softball, and we always struggled up until Xenoff redid their fields. We always struggled finding nice facilities within the city of Stevens Point. We always had to go to Plover. And, you know, again, I myself, as a taxpayer, well, and again, I'm only going to be here for a few more months and I'm leaving the city. So, I mean, but again, I'm still an alder and I need to look out for my constituents that I represent right now. I mean, I would much rather see a more broader complex that could be for all users, you know, football, lacrosse, baseball, softball, you know, the hockey obviously is unique, you know, but again, that's just my kind of, I wish we could be going in that direction instead of, I mean, because the softball and the baseball, they still struggle, you know, finding nice facilities within the city. I guess, and one other thing with the roof, you know, that's another thing that we're going to have to look at. There's going to be additional expense there. So again, I think it's a great project. I'm just a little nervous. I mean, you know, we're seeing what I've always said before. This is more of a want and not a need for our city. You know, we have many things that need to be fixed that need, you know, are more priority than this. But, and I don't get me wrong, this is a great project. But again, as a steward of the taxpayers, I have to look out for that. So thank you.
Other questions? I'll go to Alder Murrow.
I want to thank Director Kramer I want to thank Director Kramer for getting in contact with me last week as well. Just the sheer vision of this is incredible. It's a definition of public-private. I know the county looked at doing fields before, and they didn't seem to have the vision. I mean, they spent money on plans and so on, so that they'd be able to attract huge baseball, softball tournaments and so on, and they decided to punt on that as well. I see this as nothing but a pure. I mean, this is going to. I think this is going to create a lot of revenue for us. It's going to help recruit for the schools. It's going to help recruit for the hockey team. It's going to recruit for the football team. Now that we have the agreements as well, we could get the boosters, donors, and they're going to pay for the gates and so on. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's going to be that's a lot of money that's going to help us out with this. And I don't think that's been really talked about enough. I mean, to get these type of athletic facilities here. I mean, we're in the center of the state. I know that they've talked about trying to get more athletic things here. I know the mayor got the 3-on-3 here a few years ago. We're going to have the and everything that Century Insurance is doing to get the golf here. I mean, this is going to be one more arsenal that we're going to have We're gonna have two ice rinks here. We're gonna have all these fields. I mean, we're in the direct center of this estate. I mean, I don't think we're gonna be losing money on this at all. I think we're gonna be overbooked once word gets out about this. Because we are a great place, we're right in the middle. I mean, so we get folks from Milwaukee, Ashland, Rhinelander, Minnesota, all over the place. I don't see how we could even lose, and now that we have these agreements, we could put things on our fields. We could put the boosters up, when we could put the signs up. I mean, this is just an incredible experience, and I think that goes to the vision that you have, that I think this is long-term coming, and if we don't vote on this, this is gonna be a pure wasted opportunity.
2 hours from everywhere we are, right? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo some of Alder Morrow's points about the resiliency that this diversity has, moving just from football and ice to full sport options all seasons. I think that's really wonderful, and coming from a community where we had different school districts because of town politics, like to see all the school districts and civic institutions coming together is really I think a model for how athletics can really participate in the community. And we just had a community member last month come to speak about his dreams of playing for EWSB football as a boy. He went on to do it, moved away to California, and came back with those memories for his family as he comes here now. So I think that the legacy that this will continue to have an opportunity. And I was a student trainer in high school, and we had nicer facilities than a dirt floor. So I think even non-athletes alike, the opportunities for kids participating is really something cool. So I think I have maybe a more optimistic view, like that we might have too many people that want to use the space, and that we'll be managing usership, and with that in mind, then the revenue that comes both from room taxes and everything definitely makes sense as a good investment to me. So,
I agree.
Sports cooperative.
Alder Shore, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I will also echo my colleagues. Alder Slawinski asked some important questions that we needed to ask and get clarified. And Alder Morrow makes an important point about all the other resources that clearly this is helping leverage. There's definitely a doing our part piece of this with everything that's being pulled together, and I'll add my thanks really to the two of you and to everybody who's been involved. It's very impressive. Gerke Park has been mentioned as a jewel of the community. Well, that goes doubly for this neighborhood. I can't quite see my house, but it's that way, about a block and a half. We love it so much that a bunch of us have been talking about branding the neighborhood as Gerke Park neighborhood. And that puts me in a position to respond to Alder Kneebone's concerns about parking, which were briefly mentioned by the director. Yes, the parking does fill all of these areas, and if there's a little bit of a shortfall, what's going to happen is it's going to people might have to walk a little further from their on-street parking, but this neighborhood really does revel in the events that take place there, so much that even people who don't make it to the games enjoy hearing the sounds through our windows. Thanks.
And I'll just add, I'm co-founder of the Friends of Emerson Park, and I work with Alder Keemer and a wonderful group of people on a steering committee, community members. I'm amazed at the philanthropy in this community. We just hit our $200,000 mark, and it's just amazing. Municipal budgets are tight, and I think this is how we build those partnerships necessary to build a future, to move into that future that's robust and magical and wonderful, not for me so much, I'm 66, but, you know, for my granddaughter and my maybe great-grandchildren. So it's wonderful to see this sort of collaboration and the philanthropy of caring people wanting to make this community better. So thank you for your work. I think we've exhausted the discussion, and I wanted to also say too, thank you, Alder Slawinski. Those were questions that I had asked about as well, so I appreciate your effort there. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, congratulations. Of course, this does go to council next week. This is referred to council. Full council has the say on this, so thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action on approving additional funds from TIF 6 for the Facade Improvement Grant Program. Director Karnowski, you're up now.
Thank you. I don't have quite the presentation that the Parks Department had, so I promise I'll keep
You
it
don't have
relatively
any
short.
Do you have like
Hey,
any
Jim.
music for it?
Keep an eye out for you.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
I want you to have fancy flyovers for all of the facade possibilities.
Yeah, well, I need more money in the budget, and that's
Okay.
why I'm here, actually. So essentially what you have tonight are two separate real requests. The first would be to review the proposed facade improvement grant from the Opera House, formerly known as the Fox Theater, an amount of about $115,000. Pretty much what our facade improvement grant program says.
They're excited.
Sandy's got it.
Sandy's got
she'll
it.
take care of it.
Crack the whip. No.
No,
No, don't close the door.
close the door.
Just go ask them to keep it down if you would, please, Sandy. Thank you.
Within our existing facade improvement grant program, we do offer up to $30,000, and we'll match 40% of funds that are utilized in the downtown area to improve facades. Those could be projects that include tuck pointing, brick repair, windows, doors, anything really like that. And the whole concept is to help be a partner in maintaining the historic charm of our downtown. The program is about 10 years old now. It was originally funded for about $300,000 out of TIF number 6. And from that, this council has actively, on a yearly basis, provided another $100,000 towards that program when that original $300,000 was used up. So we do have a policy within the facade improvement grant that if someone requests to go above the $30,000 mark, they can do so with council approval. So we've only done it one other time. As you might recall, it was the 1055 Main Street project. That's the building adjacent to Jim Lob's, the old Citizens National Bank building. A great success to the program itself as well. So, the first request you have in front of you is from the Opera House for $114,473.98 of facade improvement. And then the second request really is to replenish the fund. We've had a fair number of folks utilizing that program over the last few years, and in fact 2022 is going to be another good year of investment within our downtown area. So we actually will be over budget within our facade improvement grant dollars by about $116,000. So asking for the approval to grant the additional facade monies for Opera House, and second would be to front additional funding for that out of TIF number 6. Comptroller Laddick and I have reviewed this, and there's really no concern that the TIF has increment available to replenish that specific fund. So more than happy to answer their questions. Otherwise, more than happy to pass this over to Opera House folks as well if they have anything they want to add.
So we'll bring it to the floor first. There's two actions, so let's take the first one first. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
So the first one would be about the $114,473.98 so there's that. So
I'll move approval.
okay, and there is a second. Dalton. Discussion. Members of the public? Oh, go ahead,
As
I'm
someone
sorry.
who's working on a brick building, I understand the cost of that large brick facade, and so appreciate the work that will be necessary to really bring that into some more glamour.
I can't imagine doing that much tuck pointing. It would just be like maddening, I would think. Yeah. Any other members of the committee? Members of the public? Alder Kneebone, please.
Recovering urban planners always have something to say about things like this.
I'm going to get you a shirt that says that.
District 7 Alder. In fact, when I was a neighborhood planner in Dallas, one of the neighborhoods that I worked in chose to use about $1 million in federal funds for business facade improvement grants along Jefferson Street, which would be comparable to, well, our downtown, maybe just a little bit more, but it was a really fantastic program. A lot of the businesses applied, and as a result of the businesses sprucing up, a private sector group got together and renovated the Texas Theater and turned that into a big event space now that's drawn a lot of major entertainers. So things like this really can have a snowball effect down the line. So I think this is really a good program. Thanks.
Thank you, recovering urban planner. Any other members of the public? All right. Yes, sir.
So I think I don't have to tell anybody sitting by this table how much the community has been looking forward to the Opera House renovation. The facade improvement grant, I am very supportive of the extra amounts, simply because it is a minuscule amount of the overall cost that Wildcard is sinking into the project. Talon I've known for many years, and he never does anything halfway. It's always full tilt, do it correctly the first time. And that's what's taking a while. So I think this is going to be a big help, and I am 100% certain that it's going to be successful, and I hope you consider approving the additional amounts.
I walked past it this morning trying to see if there was a keyhole where I could see in, but I couldn't, and I'm a little short, so, and I had.
Some people might be able to get tours.
There you go, I might be able to request one, absolutely. All right, last chance, any? Okay. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Then we have the other one about transferring the funds from TIF 6, which I'm sure we are good on. I would entertain a motion. Alder Shore?
I'll move approval.
I second.
And Alder Morrow is a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. This gives me a chance to ask a question raised with me by a constituent several years ago. And it was about the rear side of the Main Street buildings that face onto those parking lots and hotels, et cetera. And the question is, is attention being paid to how that looks? Because I think part of our shared vision is to have, particularly as North Side Yard comes in, to have more walking also on that side. So, what's going on there?
Yeah, so the facade improvement grant program does cover rear facades as well as front facades. We've had a number of successes. 1136 Main Street with the former Book World to utilize the facade improvement grant to remove the quasi stucco that was to the brick and tuck point and put windows and doors in the rear part of that building as well. One thing, and just it's a longer term strategy. You've got to think when a lot of those buildings, when the back parts of those buildings came down when the mall was constructed, there wasn't a lot of access. There was pretty limited alleyways through there, and so as we've redeveloped the north side of Main Street with the mall redevelopment project, There is more attention being paid to how the back of those buildings work and function. Goose on Main, as an example, now utilizes a patio. The Opera House will have a beer garden. So you do have more activity occurring at that rear part as well. And you've got some improved green space as well too, especially in that area around the Opera House, Goose, and the transit center. So it's a slower process, but it's definitely something we're taking into consideration as part of redevelopment. Thanks.
Good question. And I love the painting on the wall with the foxglove and the dandelions, and it's just, yeah.
It's pretty psychedelic.
It is awesome. It's so bright and beautiful, and it took me a while to realize, oh, those are flowers that are like the animals they're called, so a little slow on the draw, so. All right, we have a motion on the floor, and again, double checking now. Motion on the floor in a second. Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed would be no. Abstention, motion carries. Last item on our agenda is discussion and possible action on approval of claims paid. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Dalton,
I'll second.
Slawinski. Any questions about the claims paid? Any member of the audience about the claims paid? Those are all the bills that have already been paid. We just want to make sure that the public sees them. Excellent. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions? Motion carries. That is all. We are adjourned, and it is 7:50. Thank you, everyone. Great discussion.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.